better, or you want it closer?
No, it's better.
Okay. Well, better.
You can always hear me. Now I'm shouting.
The tenor in your voice.
Hello.
Those dulcet tones.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rick and Danny Show.
Good to be back, Danny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm refreshed. I just got back from vacation.
I know you've de-aged, I think, 10 years. You look...
Yeah, well,
for
now.
You're positively glowing, Danny.
Until the sun negatively affects my skin.
Oh, well, that's...
You know. I was in Naples, Rick, so that's why I got a lot of sun, which was nice.
Is this a lead-in to our skin cancer prevention episode?
It should be.
It should be. I think we should switch gears.
I think we should definitely talk about it, because that was really good. So you went to Naples for a week.
Completely unscripted.
Unscripted. Yeah, we went to Naples. We've been there, 4 or 5 times since we've been down here.
Wow.
It's a go-to because we like the Gulf Coast. We like the beach. Very nice for the kids. The waves aren't too big. They can get in the water, splash around.
You know your life is good when you're like, oh, I don't like the beach on the Atlantic side. I want to go to the Gulf side of the beach. Oh, sorry, we're not good enough here in Jacksonville for you.
I do like the East Coast, but sometimes you got to go to the West, you know. For NBA purposes, too, I like the East Coast.
You gotta let your bougie self shine.
Did you and your family...
We didn't buy any property while in Naples.
No, well,
Rick.
good. Did you and your family take proper skincare during
We did,
the sun?
yeah. We lathered up. We had some SPF 50. Got the kids all lathered up. Well, reapplied, which is important during these spring, summer months. We stay at a little resort that has a nice water slide for the kids. They have a lazy river, so the kids just kind of go free and we relax. Have some food by the pool, some drinks. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Lots of shade.
Your kids are old enough, I guess they can be self-sufficient.
Yeah, they run up themselves, run up the stairs, go down the slide, and I do go on, I get in one of those inner tubes in the lazy river and just watch them. Yeah.
With a beer in your hand.
With a beer or drink, whatever.
Treat yourself.
I do.
Treat yourself.
Now, I didn't get on the golf course, which was kind of sad, but
yeah, you were there for a good while. That's good.
We were there Monday through. We left Friday morning.
It's a good trip.
Yeah, it was good. We stopped in Orlando first, so I had 7 days off, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Wow.
No wonder why Sugarman was losing it.
I know. Yeah, she had a tough week.
She's holding on by a thread, folks.
So Thursday was the Magic Cavs game,
Okay.
which Ethan and I went to, my son, and it was a little bit sad that the Cavs sat all their starters, but not unheard of at the end of the season. So we watched that game. Then Friday we went to Universal with the kids. That was our first time at Universal.
This is like better than any family trip I ever had when I was a kid.
I know.
We
never did stuff like that.
NBA game, Universal, a week at a nice resort in
Right.
Naples with inner tubes. What the heck?
Well, see,
Ethan's living the dream, man.
The kids don't know how. They don't, really. I think my one vacation growing up was like Myrtle Beach. We went once, and that was when I was Ethan's age. So, yeah, they haven't made. But, and then from there, Monday, we went down to Naples. We drove down to Naples and then back last weekend.
Nice.
So it was good.
Well, it's that we're getting close to that time of the year where sun protection, especially in Florida, is paramount. As a pasty white Irishman myself, I have to unfortunately be very, very on the spot, or else I'll end up burnt to a crisp and miserable.
Relatable.
So,
yep.
As the listeners know, my main outdoor activity involves swinging a white ball not very far, and so I definitely am known around the golf links. I'm known around the golf links for many things, but the main thing I'm known for is always have sun protection, sunscreen, and, clothing ideally, but obviously it's too hot to wear pants, in my opinion. So sunscreen is paramount. Do you?
Oh, I had to laugh for a second.
What?
Too hot to wear pants.
Too hot to wear pants. Would you wear pants in this weather?
No, I wouldn't. It just implies that you're not wearing pants when you're golfing. I'm just like...
No, see, that's what you heard. I think most people, when they say it's too hot to wear
pants... talking about shorts.
I know.
It's too hot to wear pants, I think most people would assume that means you're wearing shorts. But you're Danny.
I just had to chuckle.
In your head.
Listen,
that's
Danny has one sip of coffee.
No
That's all
wonder
we're
why
doing.
you need the sunscreen.
I don't think they call that golf. I think it's a different. I think that's a different sport you're
I
describing.
don't know what you do at your club, Rick. But...
That's a different sport you're describing. All right. Well, this
Brendan's
podcast
gonna cut
is
this
now.
out.
Oh no.
This
no, I
podcast
won't.
is going to have the little E for explicit next to
Our
it.
first one.
It's like we're growing up.
No, but we've had an episode. What has been probably a year or more where we talked
It's
about
been 2
skin
years.
cancer
2
progression
years.
or prevention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most common type of cancer.
I have more wrinkles from sun since that last
You-
episode.
Yeah. So
Clearly
the
you're not taking your
sunscreen.
own advice, man.
No, I am. I'm old. It's
Well.
a problem.
Yeah.
You don't know yet, Brenna, because you're so young. What are you, like 19? So.
Oh.
Excuse me, I just turned 20. So.
Okay, sorry, 20. So you don't have to deal with what us old people have to deal with.
Wrinkles and aches and pains. And
Yeah, I woke up
Children.
on Monday with debilitating back spasms out of the blue. Never had them before, for no reason. Yeah, because
Golf and picking up your kids. That's the two.
Carrying the
things.
weight of this podcast. On
Yeah.
your shoulders.
now that is.
Ooh.
Thank you, Brenna.
I'm sorry.
I thought you would say that for
I
you.
know.
You know,
Well,
But it was
you're
just such
carrying the load.
such a layout.
I know,
She had
I
to
know.
say it.
Just, yeah, I was right there.
It's disgusting that you just did that.
Wow. But no, I mean, I think, for the good, not much has changed in 2 years in terms of the
Right.
recommendations. I mean, it's still protective clothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be outside, like you mentioned when you were on your vacation, don't forget to reapply. That's key. I think some
Reapply, yeah.
people think you put sunscreen on and you're out for 6 hours and that's all you need to do. No, it's constantly reapply. I will say, I mean, I have no personal endorsements to anything, but for the last probably 2.5, 3 years, I've changed from the sunscreens that like absorb in your skin to more the topical barrier ones, like the
barrier
zinc based ones. And yeah, they're a little whiter and harder to rub in, but I feel like they last longer. And anecdotally, they seem to, for whatever reason, for me, do better.
They're not as greasy. It's
Yeah.
kind of you actually see where you're applying it better too,
Right.
and you can figure out
I
where
think
you.
it's helped with the kid. I think it's good for the kids too because you can see
where
exactly where,
they're covering.
you're putting it. So
Exactly.
before when I put it on RJ before I get clocked in the face. So.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I usually
He's such
opt
a
for
kid.
those too. RJ is.
Yeah.
Oh, he
He's
is.
my
He
favorite.
is.
It's funny. He's now he turns 4 in June. It's crazy.
Wow.
So he's starting to finally figure things out. It's
Yeah.
very funny to watch. Now you can actually negotiate with him, have reasonable conversations where he's not just a complete banshee at all times. It's just nice to see.
Nice.
Any new treatments or
No, I mean the key.
Well, I guess
what
the
we're
phase 2, right? The
well,
Libtayo.
yeah. So Libtayo. I mean, when we talk about
Semolizumab.
advanced, skin cancers, basal cell, squamous cell, melanoma, they're in terms of treating squamous cell and basal cell carcinomas, which are much more common, usually present later in life. Although we do see some young patients who get both, largely basal cells, but sometimes squamous cell carcinomas of the skin. They have come out with some data to show that in patients who require a big operation, like a wide excision of one of these lesions, that giving them preoperative immunotherapy can at a minimum really shrink down the tumors pretty significantly. I think response rates were near 50%. I'd have to review it again to remember exactly what their response rate was, but it was pretty close to 50%. And you would consider immunotherapy in someone with a real large lesion, maybe a lesion that's on an area of the skin which is tough to perform the wide excision because of grafting and different things. So giving preoperative immunotherapy is an option for some patients now. And that's becoming more in vogue for a variety of cancers too. So giving some preoperative therapy to make the surgery easier. But surgery is the mainstay usually for most of these lesions. Wide local excision, Mohs surgery to kind of get clear margins and then hopefully sew up or put a skin graft on that area if it's a wide area.
Yeah, my mother-in-law just had a Mohs done on her. They don't sew it up? Did they sew it up or no?
Depends on the size of the defect. So they can either do intermediate layered repairs, which is basically just approximate the skin back together. They can take grafts from other skin parts of the body, grafted back, or even donor grafts, things like that. It's just,
Mhm.
or even in big resections, flaps of like muscle and stuff from other parts of the body. So, yeah, radiation also is a good treatment option for these patients and folks who either don't want surgery or can't have surgery, or if it's in a location that surgery can be cosmetically disfiguring. Radiation does a really good job as well of controlling the primary site. So we actually treat a decent amount of skin here at Cancer Specialists with radiation, because again, you get these patients that have been through 7, 10 Mohs surgeries and they're over it. So they
Yeah.
want to try something different,
Yeah.
or they don't want to deal with the recovery from the surgery. So that's another viable option, but surgery is definitely still the mainstay and standard for most cases.
And Dr. Wormuth just had a couple months ago radiation on his nose. That's public. We boosted the post, so I don't know if you guys know about that or can talk to it, or I didn't even know that radiation was an option for skin cancer, because I mean, when my dad had it was 20 years ago. So
yeah, I think it's unfortunately people don't know because one, historically, before we had kind of more modern ways to treat, certainly I think a lot of patients or a lot of other doctors felt radiation was too side effect heavy, which was probably reasonable. But now with kind of modern technology, it tends to be, as Dr. Wormuth I think shared or on his post, that they really, other than the time commitment, usually it's nothing too crazy in terms of side effects. And they're all just basically local skin irritation mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Would you use it on like a stage 3 or 4? Would you radiate something that's spread?
So typically at that point, depending on if you have a node positive skin cancer that's not melanoma, so like a squamous cell, and if they're resectable, then at that point they probably would receive adjuvant radiation, so radiation after the surgery, possibly with chemo as well, depending on the path. And then, or if they were not resectable, then you could treat definitively with chemoradiation. But surgery would definitely be the preferred initial choice, followed by radiation to kind of clean up where the surgery was done. In melanoma, once it's spread to the nodes, then it really becomes more Danny's team in terms of the immunotherapy, because it is so effective that radiation really, we typically would only push it in nodal basins where if there was a very high burden of nodal disease or some other risk factors that we look at, but the mainstay in melanoma is more going to be the immunotherapy side of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think it's definitely immunotherapies, thankfully, I think going to help just provide more options for these patients from a drug standpoint, because I think before we didn't really have much in the way of anything other than your basic squame chemos and stuff like that. So certainly for melanoma, it's obviously been a complete changer, and then but hopefully for squamous cells as well, and even now in basal cells too.
Yeah, can use it in basal cell carcinoma too.
I think I think the take-home message is sun protection and then regular dermatology exams at least once a year. Everyone should have a skin exam.
Do you want to do a brief overview of kind of what all those big words you just tossed out mean? So, difference between basal and squamous and melanoma.
Yeah. So basically, skin cancer is divided into melanoma skin cancers or non-melanomatous skin cancers. So melanoma typically being the one that is most lethal, kind of stage for stage. It can present at any age. Certainly there's risk factors including sun exposure, genetics, but a lot of times these patients have no known risk factor. I think what makes melanoma even more can be scarier is that a lot of times you don't even find the primary skin lesion. These patients show up with disease in their liver, they show up with disease in their lungs, and you don't even know how it really got there.
Yeah, where it came from. Right.
Versus most non-melanomatous skin cancers, we divide them into basal cell and squamous cell. Both are cells that are from the surface of the skin. Like Danny mentioned, typically as you get older, you're more susceptible to these. These are the ones more commonly you think of as skin cancers directly from sun radiation. Ultraviolet radiation. Typically, they're not ones that spread to other parts of the body, but occasionally we do see that, especially if it's been neglected for a while.
Yeah.
So if someone's had a skin cancer that they didn't do anything about for years and years, eventually it can move to other parts of the body. So yeah, those are the kind of the two
Yeah.
I don't know how you would.
Usually I guess, a basal cell carcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma that a patient either ignored or didn't know about, and it's been there years, you usually see some ulceration at the site. Or in a squamous cell, you might see that it looks kind of really raised and irregular with scaling, and can be some bleeding at the site. Actually, with both of them, with squamous and basal cells, sometimes you can get some bleeding. And with basal cells, I've seen with the really advanced ones, you start to get ulceration where the skin kind of starts to have, denting, and you get kind of sloughing off of some layers of skin, and it can look pretty ugly at times. And like Rick said, I think when patients have a larger area, and if they're not a candidate for surgery, that's when we think about radiation treatment with chemotherapy, sometimes for the really locally advanced squamous cells or basal cells. But if you can do a surgery, you still try to surgically resect these larger lesions. And yeah, immunotherapy has been a game changer for melanoma, especially when it's spread to lymph nodes or other areas of the body. We still aim to surgically resect most melanomas, and in certain cases of stage 4 melanoma, you would want to surgically resect if there's limited disease. Say, for example, you do identify a primary site, and then you got a CT scan on somebody, and you found a nodule in their lung, or you found an area somewhere else in the body that was biopsy-proven melanoma. You probably surgically resect and or potentially offer a radiation treatment to that spot, and then go forward with immunotherapy to lower the risk of recurrence.
Gotcha.
So that's the way we treat nowadays. Someone widely metastatic with any one of these type of cancers, generally immunotherapy is the first line of treatment. Melanoma in a young patient, we use a combined immunotherapy, 2 different types of immunotherapy. There are other targets that are gene mutations that have oral drugs that are available for melanoma. But we look at everything, and there are actually some fantastic trials nowadays for melanoma, usually in the second line setting. So if someone was diagnosed and treated and then had a suboptimal response, you get them to a big center and get some good treatment. Some of the immunotherapy treatments that are tailored to the individual, that's taking their cells, engineering their cells, putting them back into them to fight the cancer, have really good data behind them. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Cool.
It's a better day to have a bad disease like this, but we are actually curing a lot of patients with stage 4 disease, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. That, I mean, obviously it's what started the whole immunotherapy explosion, but I mean, you went from something that was pretty much universally fatal in a short amount of time to now so many patients with durable, forever responses. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
The side effects from the immunotherapy, though, are wild. Like my dad is completely like vitiligo in his hands and like on his neck and stuff, so you can't get like any sun. Like there's just nothing there. I think I probably told you guys this. His eyelashes went completely white, midway through his treatment, and just the pigment never came back, which is a good sign. Like it means it's working, but it's
it's just, I mean, if you think about it, right,
better than the alternative.
Your immune system does so much that we don't even. It's not just preventing infections. Obviously, your immune system does a lot of things, and it's obviously all parts of your body. Yeah. So I always like joke when a patient has like a side effect when they're on immunotherapy and they feel something. I'm like, probably not immunotherapy, but like obviously there's common things that you guys counsel them on, but like it's really could be
anything.
Any autoimmune.
Anything,
basically anything your immune system could attack of your own could theoretically be ramped up by immunotherapy. Yeah. But obviously, the pros thankfully greatly outweigh the cons for most patients.
Better than.
Well, because most of the time you can tamper or lower the immune effect on the body by giving a steroid, giving other types of treatment to calm down your immune system. But the first and foremost, you got to try to keep people alive with their cancer.
Well, yeah. And the other thing too, and I always forget about it until like something happens, like my dog jumps up on him, his skin is so thin, now in those areas that like when they were just here a couple weeks ago, Miller like jumped up on it. He had been there like 3 hours. Just absolutely like gashed his arm open.
Oh yeah.
Dude, like.
Yeah.
I told you not to let the dog jump on you.
Yeah.
But again, better than the first round 20 years ago of chemo cocktail of.
Yeah, the chemo didn't work for melanoma. You'd get chemotherapy, and your prognosis was 6 to 9 months, maybe.
Yeah.
With chemo, so it just wasn't good. And then slowly they developed these immunotherapies that now are used for all kinds of cancers. So. Yeah, pretty good stuff. Better day to practice now than back then, where you had limited options.
No doubt.
You guys can wrap it up.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of the Rick and Danny Show. I think we gave everyone a nice overview of skin cancer prevention, which is key.
Yeah, don't go around patting yourself on the back too hard there, Dr. Kaminsky. I think we did a yeoman's job. But yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Thank you guys as always for listening, and hopefully tune in next time.